You're in.
Not showing up. There it is. Okay, here we are. All right, here we is. Here we is. It's time to get down to biz. Now, I've had to put the camera, which is the phone, a little farther away than normal. Let me know if you're having a hard time hearing, and we'll make things right. But I think it should be good. Without further ado, I'm going to introduce tonight's... Oh, my goodness. Oh, shit. Listen to all that audio. All right, here we go. Now we're good. I want to introduce tonight's guest interviewer, my good pal. You've heard me talk about him before. He's been on the show before. Mr. Jeff Williams. Yes, hey. Sir. All right, Jeff. Great to have you back on Break On Through, pal, as always.
What's going on, JC?
Not much. Just ready for some good interviewing.
Well, you want to get out some plugs, talk about anything before you do that? Shows coming up?
I would like to say, and you can check the comment section inside this podcast tomorrow, and I will post some live dates that the Self-Made Monsters are going to be playing in the area very soon. I meant to have them in front of me, which, as you see, I don't. I had so much going on this afternoon. I was getting ready for the guest interview that a lot of things slipped my mind. But Self-Made Monsters, as you know, brand new CD on Long Haired Weirdo Records. Great friends of both mine and Jeff. And you've seen Eddie on here recently. And if you can, go out and support them. Remember, ANTiSEEN will be playing live in Philadelphia on April 4th at the Eat Their Turnbuckle Final Bloodbath Battle Royal. And the next night, April 5th, we will be at Westside Bowl in Youngstown, Ohio. And then we're going to wrap up that weekend at the Skid Row Garage in York, Pennsylvania. And as I teased today, I will have some dates for May to announce, maybe as early as tomorrow, definitely by Friday. I got a lot more news to break and everything, but I'm going to wait and do that tonight. We're going to get I've been telling you, the best format I can think of is to have someone ask me stuff rather than me just have to think about what people want to hear about. And I have not seen or heard any of Jeff's questions that he is going to ask, or any topics he wants to discuss. When I hear them just now, when you hear them, it'll be the first time I'm hearing them. And so without further ado, let's hit it the way it needs to be done.
I will verify this is 100% a shoot. There's no kayfabe. I'm giving you no topics. The only thing I promised is that I wouldn't blindside you like you've been blindsided in the past. I wouldn't do that to you. But I want to start off. I want to ask you a little question.
Right.
Do you remember the 15-year anniversary show?
In Philadelphia.
Philadelphia. Upstairs at Nick's.
Upstairs at Nick's, yes.
Do you remember the first song of your set?
How did we do that? We started with current. Where at the time was current material.
You started with Jailhouse.
Okay.
You worked your way back
to the earliest material.
The early stuff. And you told me at the time, sometimes you have to throw everybody a curveball.
Yeah.
You have to do things that not everybody is expecting. Everybody's expecting you to come out, Queen City Stomp, those types of songs. And that always stuck with me. Kind of, even your fans, the people you love the most, sometimes you gotta do something they're not expecting. That's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna start off with I'm gonna start top heavy.
Okay.
ANTiSEEN has been around for 40 years. In September 30th, 2023, last year, you played in Ground Zero. You played your 40th anniversary show.
Yeah.
When any band is around for 40 years, it's not even before 40 years. When a band's been around for 40 years, there is a question that even if it doesn't manifest itself verbally from anybody, or if it's not even if it's written, there's a question out there that is floating, and that question is, how much longer are these guys going to keep going? How much longer, what does the end of that band look like? And you have said here on record, the train keeps rolling until I say it's no longer rolling. My personal opinion is ANTiSEEN will never book a last show. Jeff Clayton will never, ever book and promote a last show. How right am I?
I think you're right. Because, man, I'm going to tell you something. If there was a show that said ANTiSEEN's the last show, well, then you better believe it will be the last show. I'm not going to do to our fans what a lot of other bands are doing and have done, where we say, it's last time you get to see it. Oh, 4 years later, here we are back again because the money was right. If I tell you it's the last show, you best believe you will not see the band ANTiSEEN, fronted by me, performing live anywhere ever again. But as far as how long will we go, well, man, I just got to say, I'm going to put over my bandmates right now. The Ultra lineup. The way that we bounce ideas off of each other constantly, always trying to think of new ways to do what we do, the creativity does not seem to be running dry. And I've got 3 guys in the band, other than myself, that are songwriters. And fortunately, I have 3 guys in the band that understand what it's like to write songs for this band. That being said, as long as the creativity keeps coming, and as long as we're still enjoying it, we're going to keep going. For me, I don't have a set time. I do have a goal. I would like to make 50, if at all possible, 10 years from now. But I can tell you this: if I have to do it, sitting in a chair, or if I have to be propped up on the stage, or anything like that, it will not make it.
Well, I understand that, but I believe you're 15 years behind Iggy Pop, and you're not gonna retire. You're not gonna choose to retire before Iggy Pop retires.
No, and the only thing that will make it happen, the only thing that'll make the death train pull into the station and go, okay, it's time to dismantle it and all that, is just if for some reason I am not physically able to continue.
Understand. Admirable declaration. I want to get into the business side of things for a second, and that might kind of bum people out a little bit, but also a lot of people, they buy books by their favorite band's road managers, so maybe this will be of interest. And I think that people outside of your circle, what you've lovingly referred to as the firm, people outside of the firm would probably be a little, they'd be surprised at maybe the sophisticated levels of organization that you have in place with regards to not just the band itself, but those around it, again, the firm. Trying to think of the right way to put this. That sophisticated layers of organization that you have in place for that. How does that? How responsible and how helpful is that in being a band doing this for 40 years? How does that play into you being successful at doing this at this level for 40 years now?
before I get too deep into answering the root of that question, I would like to go back in time a little bit to our first tour ever of Europe. Mm-hmm. It was supposed to be in 1991, but because the agency got our promo photo 3 weeks late, the entire tour for 91 was canceled. And they said, we have to move into 92. Okay, so it's going to be 92. Just a funny note, the tour shirts we had made for that originally said 1991. Well, we had to change it, of course, to 1992. And years later, when I'm over in Europe, I would see somebody wearing a 1991 European tour shirt. They already made some and I guess gave them away. But anyway, I'm getting off topic. What happened was the agency, and they admitted this to us later after they got to know us and worked with us, even as early as 1992, which at that point we were just about to hit our 10-year mark. But they said they took bets on whether we would even make it through customs. Because they figured, oh, well, you know, they're hillbillies, they're drunk all the time, they're probably pissed off that they can't bring their shotguns on the plane. They'd probably, you know, marvel at the invention of indoor plumbing. You know, it's like they're going to be like Mom Pa Kettle in the big city, and they were instead extremely shocked at how together, how uniform, and how professional we were about everything.
That's the point that I'm getting at. I think people wouldn't think that a band with this imagery and that with the reputation does not. You wouldn't think, outsiders wouldn't maybe quite understand that there's a high level of sophistication and layers of duties that people come in, people come out, but you have a wide network of people that keep this train going outside of the band itself.
Yeah, and
that's and I guess my question is how important has that been to keep this band going for 40 years?
It's been very important, and man, when people sometimes people will drop the ball on us, and I have to move on. I don't, man, I've said this before. It was more so a long time ago, but even when we had a steady lineup, Joe and I were always looking at this band's bass player, or this band's drummer, especially the drummers, because we lost drummers quite a bit. But we were never, ever. I mean, we in the earliest shows, we may have been just because of being so green and not knowing any better. But quickly, very quickly, we adapted a no-nonsense, and we do not do things flying by the seat of your pants. A lot of bands do, they just show up, roll their gear on stage, set it up however which way, put it in chairs, put it on cardboard boxes, cords running every which way, not sure what side of the stage you're going to stand on, and all this. I'm not saying we haven't had to do that out of necessity sometime, but I can tell you it was never a part of our aesthetic. We always knew, we were always uniform, knew what to do, and I'm not going to lie, it did take some members a while to adapt because they weren't used to it. And some of them didn't like it. They didn't like that kind of, they wanted it to be more, this is a party. We're a rock band. We're partying.
It's not rock and roll to be on time.
Yeah, it's not rock and roll to be on time. It's not. And man, like not only are we ever on time, we're early. Always early. Always. If we're not early, it's because something happened beyond our control. I like for when those doors open for our merch stand to already be set up. Everything ready to be going to go. The equipment is already backlined. The banners are up. Everything's covered. You know, and most people, I guess, that like this kind of music would think, oh, and that's when you start getting fucked up and getting drunk and smoking pot and everything else. But no, that's when we are in the back boiling up some tea. And it's just the way we've always done things, and even some founding members got to where they had trouble staying within those confines. You know, once it became too much work.
Well, we're going to get to that.
Okay.
But I do want to talk about your current lineup, which you've lovingly referred to as the Ultra lineup.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of want to go through a little bit of that. And I'd be insulted if I didn't start top down.
Mm-hmm.
I think that Sir Barry Hannibal, I was doing the math recently. He rivals Joe Young as far as collective years in the band.
Mm-hmm.
I would say if he's not number 2, he's pretty damn close.
He's I don't think he. Well, I don't know. This year Joe will have been gone 10 years.
Yeah, we're gonna get
So
into that.
Barry's got 10 years. You know, 10 years that Joe was not here.
But he did quit for about.
He did quit for about 5 or 6 years in the middle.
But I mean, regardless, he's your second or third longest.
He has been in this band longer than anyone other than me and Joe.
And I think anybody that's an ANTiSEEN fan knows exactly what Barry brings to the table as far as a drummer. That can never be overstated. But I want you to talk to me and the people about the hats that Barry wears.
Oh, good gosh, man. Barry is more than drummer. Drummer is probably the easiest part of what he does and most natural part of what he does. Barry is also producer. He is he's musical arranger. He makes the schedules for rehearsals and stuff like that. He's technically deals with all the equipment. Not that he sets up everybody's equipment, but when there's problems, Barry's the solve it guy. He's the fix it man for everything.
He's your engineer.
He's the engineer, and and through the years, I would just come up to Barry with an idea, not quite knowing how to flesh it out and make it be something that you can see right in front of you. But most things I can explain it to Barry, tell it to Barry, and then it happens.
That's always been impressive to me. Every band has idea guys, and they take on that role of being an idea guy without the idea of, okay, we have to make this happen. Barry will bring things to the table already fleshed out before he ever even tells you.
Man, he will bring a song fully demoed.
Yeah.
Like, there's no guesswork. The idea of jamming to flesh things out, the idea of... Now, I know there's a stage in songwriting where you do kind of have to flesh things out, but we've never been that group that just gets together to jam. We don't do that. We have ideas already. A Barry will bring you an idea that's got drums, bass, guitar, and vocals in it. It's like all the guesswork's gone. But he's never married to a demo. If we say, hey, what about we, do this? It's always open for everybody's interpretation, if it's a good idea.
Yeah, I really do believe the very first time I heard Sabu, it was the demo that he did everything, and he brought it to you guys. And pretty faithful. You guys fleshed it out, pretty faithful to his demo, which speaks a lot to his understanding what ANTiSEEN needs in the songwriting department.
And you know something else Barry can do that very few people have been able to do, but Barry can. And he does it better than anyone that's ever been in the band. When he writes lyrics, he can write lyrics as if it's coming out of my mind or my mouth. Now, we've had other guys in the band that were songwriters, but man, they turn in some lyrics and I'd be like, this doesn't sound like me at all.
Yeah.
You know, and we've even tried some that were just a failure. And, but Barry can write it as if I said it. You know, we've always dissected other songwriters' lyrics like, well, you know, this doesn't even fit within the ANTiSEEN attitude or framework in any way, shape, or form. So we're not going to do this. We know we're not going to try to shove this square peg into this round hole. You know, we're not even going to attempt it. So,
well, moving on, you made the decision whenever the bass player position needed to be filled. It was a little odd at the time. You decided to seek outside of the Concord, the Charlotte area, with a lot of success, I might add. You bought an associate of the band, a confidant of the band, in Malcolm Tennant that you've known for about as long as the band has been going. And
Malcolm Tennant saw us in our second year of existence.
And it's obvious that he comes to the band with, of course, the chops, and a lot of pedigree that matches what ANTiSEEN does. But I will say this, and correct me if I'm wrong. I feel like that Malcolm brings more than anybody that you've ever had in the band besides yourself. Malcolm has a real understanding of the economics of underground music and the business that, you know, as someone who's put out records, as someone who books shows, as someone who works with distributors and the underground press. I think you've never had anyone that has been in ANTiSEEN that understood that as well as you. Now you do. How helpful has that been over the last few years?
Man, there's so many reasons why these guys are called the ultimate lineup. It's the ultra lineup. It's ultra in the fact that not only in just performance, not only in just presentation, but I like how you're talking about all this behind the scenes stuff. It's like a long, long time ago, I was told by people close to me, you need to learn to delegate. But to be honest with you, there were times when that just was not possible. I'm going to give you an example. One time we, I won't say his name, but I gave delegation a shot.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, you know exactly what I'm going to talk about. I told one of our band members, hey man, here's some flyers for our show. How about passing these out, you know, putting these up around town and stuff. All right. 2 weeks later, I hadn't seen a damn flyer anywhere. And I was told by him, he goes, hey man, I hung some up here in my house, man. A lot of motherfuckers come in and out of here.
A lot of mofos come in and out of
I was
this
just
place.
like, oh, okay.
I remember that, and I remember the show after the show that was promoting, and that reflected that.
Yeah, it sure did.
I was at that show. It was at Tabloids.
It sure did. I learned some very valuable lessons doing that early version of delegation.
So you appear to have success by reaching outside of the Charlotte, outside the South. You know, Malcolm's 12 hours away, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So you hedged your bets whenever Russ gave his notice, and you brought in another longtime confidant of the band in Walt Wheat. and I think that it's been a good choice so far. He's came in and he's made the role his own. I'm not going to ask you what does he bring to the table, but there was a little bit of a. Anytime you make a move like that, getting somebody that lives 12 hours from here, what in Walt did you see that said this is the perfect choice?
Well, man, you know how I told you we were always looking at other members of the bands, and I don't know. I'm going to go ahead and confess something right now, and I don't know. Maybe some of you guys out there, when you hear this, you might go, "Damn, Clayton, you're a low down son of a bitch." But I would look at guitar players too, because man, you never know.
Well, I think anybody that plays music is always eyeing, one day if this person's available, or even if they're not available.
Well, I always saw before I hang, and I always was like, this guy would fit with this band. I've seen other guys now that that I liked a lot, and thought they were fantastic at what they did, but I just didn't think it would fit well with what we were doing. And I thought Walt would fit in. Matter of fact, when we were sitting outside the funeral home after myself and my brother and Jeff Young and Jimmy Repo went up to see Joe for the last time. Needless to say, it was a pretty heavy day. But Barry and someone else ended up out there with us, and we were all just kind of sitting around talking, and for the first time during that whole, I guess by this point it was 4 days in, Barry says, "So, what are we going to do?" And I said, "Man, I don't know." I said, "I'd be honest with you, I hadn't even really thought about it too much. I did think about it, but when Jeff Young heard us discussing it, he says, 'Y'all can't quit.' He said, 'You got to keep going.' And he goes, I don't know who you'd get, but Russ's name was there, just because Russ had been an associate and a close friend of the band for so long. But I did toss out the name Walt Wheat. And I remember Barry even agreeing that would be a good fit. But then there was the whole issue of him living, 10 hours away. So we didn't even consider it. And you got to understand something, y'all. We were a band that, Wi-Fi's fucking up. We were a band that needed to practice. What is the Wi-Fi fucking up?
I don't think it is.
Yeah, see? We're frozen. See, we're frozen. Are we frozen, everybody? Yep, there we go. There we are. We're froze. I don't know what's going on here. Let me see here. Our signal's good. I don't know what's going on. Oh, fuck, it's fucking up. You're currently offline.
Now, that might be offline, but that might still be online, right?
Nope. Wi-Fi is off. God damn it. I don't know what I did. Oh, here we go. Okay, sorry about that, folks. We had a little technical glitch going on there. As soon as we lost a bunch of you. All right, Tink Tink says we're back. Erica says we're back. Dusty says we're back. Hey, Dusty. But anyway, where did I leave off, Jeff?
Well, you were talking about the name Walt Wheat as a guitar player.
Right.
Was there from the beginning. He was on a short list. And
yeah, very very short list of only about 2 or 3 people, and but see, this is back, like Joe was gone now, but you got to understand, up to that point, which was what, 30 something years already, 31 years, we were the band that had to practice every week. We had to, because if we went 6 weeks or 2 months without any practice, some people in the band didn't remember Queen City Stomp that we've been playing for 25 years prior. You know, it was just, that's what it is. I mean, look, I know that sounds mean. Y'all probably think, damn, Clayton, you're cold. But I'm just telling you the truth.
Well,
and you got to understand, that was the way we operated. And then when we finally got members in, and we didn't really have that yet with the lineup of that included Barry on bass, Russ Ward on guitar, and that Brian guy on drums, because he was one that needed to practice. And not to the extent of like with Joe, but you know, we had to practice pretty frequently. But then when we got the Ultra lineup together, you got people that know the songs. They know the damn song. They played Queen City Stomp one time, they know damn Queen City Stomp, you know. And so, you know, the fact that we could have a band that didn't all live in town was completely foreign to us at that point. And then, you know, of course, 10 years had to pass by, or 8 years had to pass by before we realized that just wasn't a necessity.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know, just for the record, I feel like Russ did a really good job, and he had the disadvantage of being the next guitar player after Joe Young.
That was a tough spot, man.
Whereas, and probably the toughest part of it was internally within Russ, because it seemed like the crowds took to him pretty quickly and appreciated what he brought. I know that it bothered him, as I think it would bother anybody that's coming in after an iconic guitar player. So I think that Walt has had the advantage of having an 8-year buffer between him and Joe Young.
That was definitely to his advantage.
And I say that with all due respect to Walt and Russ. They both they both taken on a hefty job, because a lot of what ANTiSEEN is known for is their guitar sound. We're going to get back to Joe in a minute. I kind of want to switch gears a little bit, and without getting too controversial or political, over the last, whether you agree with it or not, over the last 4 years, everybody has had to learn how to do things a little bit differently, because decisions were made that affected all of us, whether you agree with it or not. And music and entertainment was just as affected, especially a band on the level of ANTiSEEN. ANTiSEEN came along not too long after the quarantines and the shutdowns, and clubs were closing and staying closed for quite a while. You and ANTiSEEN really embrace social media, where you haven't really embraced it up to this point quite as much. And at the same time, because of quarantine, but also because life in general and the structure of the band now kind of being a national band that spans a couple thousand miles, ANTiSEEN is not the touring behemoth that they once were. Has the embrace of social media with this platform break on through, and the live streams, which have been were done better than anybody I've ever seen, has the embrace of social media and the technology part that you and I both are real uncomfortable with, has that helped fill that void of playing a lot of shows?
Well, yeah, because what started all that, like I had no, like when I knew that we weren't going to be playing because of the restrictions, I mean, I was just kind of thinking like, well, I don't know how we'll continue to function, but one thing I did notice really quick is that merchandise sales doubled. In some cases, tripled and quadrupled. So even though people were having to stay home, they were not being completely dormant. And I remember asking a question online about ANTiSEEN is open for these bands, but one of them is not true. You know that whole thing?
Mm-hmm.
I did it for ANTiSEEN. And I don't know how I figured out. I know I'd probably done a couple live. I figured out how to do live videos on here. Someone showed me how, I'm sure. I didn't just figure it out. That didn't happen. But someone had to show me. And I probably made a few announcements or something. But I built anticipation to answer that question on a live video. And the live video, man, because everybody was staying at home and glued to their phones or their we're losing it again.
Are we back?
Nope, we're frozen. Are we back, y'all? I think we're back. I saw a thumb up. I see us moving. Okay, so where did I leave off? Do you know?
Yeah, you were. No, I don't remember. but I feel like we've covered that. You were talking about. You were kind of putting your toe in the water with regards to social media.
Yeah. And I noticed that the response was like, pretty big. And I was like, and I don't know what, like, I guess I could go back and look at the first break on through to see how I mean, to be honest with you, I will go back and watch them the next day just to critique myself and the things I try to stop doing or want to do more of, or, this kind of mess. But I was just like, I don't even know how I got started. I'd have to ask Clinton Zilla or Malcolm Tent. They're archivists. They know about this stuff. But I just said, at one time I was doing it twice a week, I think.
You were.
At the beginning. And
because when you started off doing it, it was like the history of ANTiSEEN.
Yeah, I started at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And as I went further into it, of course, you remember other things that you wish you had talked about, and I have gone back and told some stories again, but just added more detail because I remember them. It's like I told you, man, I'm not the guy that sits around listening to my band.
Mm-hmm.
all the time, and just, being happy with what we've done. I'm happy with what is on the horizon.
The answer to that question dovetails nicely with my next question. Really, more of a topic. I want to talk about the ANTiSEEN fan base. Mm-hmm. You have been in a position. I'm sure that when I say bands of when I talk about your colleagues and your contemporaries, I'm talking about. Take a good example. Bands like the Dwarves, Super Suckers, Natural Pussy. Bands that have an international footprint and have longevity. I'm sure all these bands have members that have been around for. They've had fans that have been around for decades. Mm-hmm. ANTiSEEN has a lot of fans that have been around that have followed this band for a long time. Mm-hmm. And the ANTiSEEN fan base, I don't want to say they're easy to spot. They don't usually fall into all the punk rock trappings. A lot of the cosplay that comes along with punk rock. And punk rock is a lot of cosplay.
Yeah.
If you're from Hickory or Statesville, okay, why are you dressed like you're a screwdriver?
Or why you dress like it's UK 82 or
exactly. You don't try to act like you're from the 50s with gauged out ears.
You and me have made that joke about 3 dozen times.
But the ANTiSEEN fan base is somewhat eclectic.
Yeah.
And you've embraced that, and I feel like ANTiSEEN really has had that we accept you, one of us mentality. And and it's been this way for a long time.
It's been that way since the beginning.
It would be normal to see someone wearing an Iron Maiden shirt in your crowd, and to this day they're still there, and that you were genre specific, and that if you're coming to us, we want you. Whereas you don't require everybody to have a mohawk or a bulletproof vest made of pins.
Right.
And tell us. I feel like you've done a pretty good job of nurturing that that relationship with fans. Tell me a little bit about that. Is that like when the way that you interact and that you nurture your relationship with the fans? Is that something that you have admired other bands doing?
I think it's probably a more honest answer to be something we noticed other bands not doing. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, the "We Accept You, One of Us" was kind of our mantra from the beginning. It's what ANTiSEEN meant. Because, man, early on in the Charlotte scene in 81, 82, into 83, man, like that early, we saw the scene hierarchy and the cliques. And we didn't like it. We thought it was ridiculous, even back then. And Joe and I, being small town guys, coming to the big city of Charlotte, all of a sudden we decided we're not going to change the way we are to fit in here. We're going to make our mark here, being who we are, the way we want to be. And our whole thing was, man, and man, I heard that stuff. Oh man, you see those guys, those metal guys, blah blah blah. See those rednecks over there, or oh man, them skinheads, because they weren't wearing the proper attire. Mm-hmm. They didn't have the uniform. They didn't have the costume. They didn't have the hairstyle. They didn't have the hairdo. And our thing was, man, you can forget all that. You can forget it all. I don't care. I didn't care then, and I don't care now If you just got off work at the damn cotton mill and you want to come see a rock and roll show, come on. You know, that was always been our thing. We get accused sometimes of drawing lines and going, it's us and them, but it is us and them, but it's not. We're not keeping anyone out. Nobody. Good or bad, positive or negative, we do not shun out anyone. Now, anyone that comes into one of our shows and starts acting a fool and think they're going to ruin it for everybody, then they will be dealt with. But it has nothing to do with you're supposed to act like this, you're supposed to react like this, and look like this, and be of this mindset. Man, we've never been about that. And that makes me say, with all honesty, that we always have been, and we are to this day, the most open and all-inclusive of any fucking band out there. And I don't care what you say. We practice what you preach. And we don't even practice it. We master it. We don't care who you are. You can come to our show. You're welcome.
Good answer.
Thank you.
All right, I'm going to switch gears again, and this isn't so much. It isn't so much about ANTiSEEN in general, but I'm sure it plays into the way you have approached it, playing music, and ANTiSEEN plays with. Because you don't play a lot, and when possible, you like to play with your friends. Mm-hmm. And I've been fortunate to be among many of your shows. Mm-hmm. And you've had some of your colleagues that you've kind of given a start, or maybe didn't have quite the international footprint that ANTiSEEN had. You've done a job. You've done a good job of helping them achieve a name higher than what they had gotten. And I'm talking bands like Hell Stomper, mm-hmm. Hammerlock, mm-hmm. a lot of the COS bands. And not specifically with the COS, but how does, I'm trying to get the right way to say this, can competition exist in rock and roll in a healthy way? Are you competitive the way that you approach a show or a release? Can you be competitive playing music without being petty?
Well, that's a multi-layered answer. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to start with the basic thing. A lot of that has to do with your maturity level. Mm-hmm. As an old guy right now, you're playing with 3 bands. 2 of them just got together 2 years ago. All right, what time do we go on? Oh, you guys will be going on around midnight, 1 o'clock. Nah. We're going. We go on before 10 p.m. So that whole we're the headliner thing, that doesn't exist with us anymore. We do not get. I used to read George Jones say that. And I couldn't understand it. What do you mean? You're George Jones. You don't go out there and open for somebody. He just says, I can't wait to get back to the hotel. I understand that now. But as far as competition, man, competition can be healthy, and I think it is healthy. Here's what I honestly believe, and this is advice that I have given young bands, and I will give young bands right now. I would give old bands right now. Man, yeah, okay. Let's just say we get all right. I'm not gonna put anybody on the spot. We get the good old fashioned all time all American rock and roll band to open for us, and they're our buddies. We love them. A lot of times it's not because they're our friends; it's because we like their band. but we like them. We think they're great. But our goal is that when we go on, no one remembers you. It's our battle plan. You're our friends. We love your band. And you're going to go out there and you're going to play your best and you're going to wow this audience. But then our goal is to come on and make sure that we erase your memory.
Well, I'm just going to kind of...
And there are bands out there that made us work harder because they were just so incredible. And man, a lot of bands would not pick a band like that because of that very reason. We never shied away from that. We wanted to be pushed. We still like to be pushed.
I don't think you can not be that way when you book when you choose to play shows with the Self-Made Monsters,
Mm-hmm.
Hell Stomper. Early on in the Drag Queens when they were on fire,
Mm-hmm.
like those bands, you wouldn't be able to phone. Not that ANTiSEEN was ever known for phoning it in, but you really put yourself against the board whenever you. And these are friends.
Mm-hmm.
But I like to hear you say that. I think competition in rock and roll has this negative connotation because we've all been kind of given this guilt trip, support the scene unity, all that good stuff, which is kind of code word for, it's kind of a code for a guilt trip to come see a band that maybe you don't like.
Yeah, come see a band that no one comes to see.
And I think competition is very vital. I'll move on real quick. Talk to that one. Getting back to ANTiSEEN specifically. ANTiSEEN has...
freezing up again.
Are we?
We're going now. Okay, keep going.
Okay. ANTiSEEN is a band that for 40 years you have a past.
Mm.
And you're as a band that is constantly moving forward and always has 3 releases ahead of itself that you're always working on. I know about them.
Mm-hmm.
You're also in a position of having a 40-year career where you have a back catalog that not only deserves to be revisited from time to time, but for the simple fact that those labels might not be still putting those things out, and a market exists for them.
All right, hold on. Okay, go ahead.
And ANTiSEEN has been very good about having a network of ex-band members that you keep in the fold for, especially for a lot of special events.
Mm-hmm.
And you have done things. You most recently have probably your biggest record, "Here to Ruin Your Groove." You've given that the special treatment, which exceeded expectations.
Mm-hmm.
You have done that with other things, Southern Hostility. You've put out the demos, Drastic, the whole session, and I don't want to give it away, but you're working on some other things. There's a blind spot there, though. I feel like a lot of that post groove era.
Okay.
I feel like a lot of that post groove era, for some reason, doesn't get the love that it should. And I was thinking about it today. Boys from Brutalsville almost never gets mentioned by the fans or you. As far as like we're gonna reach back to that to celebrate that. And when I think about an album like Boys from Brutalsville, you have a lot of songs on there that to this day you still pull from.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, a lot of those songs, I would say more than most of them, were they were live show staples, and people still love hearing them today. Run My World, All Guns Blazing, Sod, Sabu. 2 of those covers you still play regularly and have always gone over really good. Are there any plans to move on and revisit and celebrate some of that other stuff?
Oh yeah, because like in the next few years, those records are going to be completely out of print as well.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, we're kind of going back to the early '90s, the mid '90s. I mean, I'll go ahead and say it. I've talked about it on here before. You know, next up to get the treatment is Eat More Possum. After that, I don't know. I guess it'll be in late 24. Late 25. I imagine next will be Southern Hostility. At some point, it'll be time to do Honor Among Thieves again. Noise for Second Noise. See, there's all that back stuff. And by the time that stuff's already done, Brutusville and Battle Ambassadors will have been out of print, you know, for going on 10 years.
While, yeah.
So, yeah, but everything's going to get... Man, as long as TKO wants to work with us, as long as there's any label that wants to work with us, but mainly them, and I'm around to do it, or anyone that is involved in the stuff is around to...
Well, you know, especially with the post-groove stuff, because that is the label that you put at. You know, you originally put out some of, those records, the post-groove, the Bad Will Ambassadors. I mean, those were originally on. It seems like a no-brainer to me. And I only ask that because I think that the fan base likes that era, has an affinity for that era.
Here's what happened with that. You had let's go to Drastic, all the way up to Ruin Your Groove. That's kind of considered the old school ANTiSEEN, the classic ANTiSEEN. Then we got into the era of Brutalsville and Bevel and Ambassadors, and it was a different sound, not a different sound, but a different way, definitely a different way of songwriting, because Barry Hannibal and Doug Knight had taken over as chief songwriters. Joe and I kind of stepped back. There's very little me and Joe on Bad Will Ambassadors. And, but with both of them, in my personal opinion, I felt they could have been a little rawer. But the one thing that a lot of even the old ANTiSEEN fans from Groove on back don't realize is those records got us a whole new audience.
I feel like Groove did as well.
Yeah, Groove started that, and that wave went all the way, and with those other two.
I refer to that as the Hoover era.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. He means Jamie Hoover, who had taken over. Well, not taken over. We went to him and was recording us.
Hell, I believe.
Yeah, starting with Hell and maybe some singles prior to that. And we just got a better sound. We got a better sound out of the studio, and the records are sounding better. And of course, when we got signed on with the TKO, then we started having a budget that was bigger, and so we were able to do this stuff. And but I think those records are important, and I don't know why I don't bring them up that often, but you're right, Brutalsville, we still play a lot of that.
Yeah, at the 40-year show, when you revisited that with...
And when we brought Doug out, that was one of the highlights of the night.
That was one of the highlights, and I hope that you mind that in the future.
Oh, yeah.
Now we've kind of touched upon this a little bit. And this is a little bit of a touchy subject.
Mm-hmm.
I want to talk about Joe Young for a minute, because it would be, I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about Joe Young.
Okay.
And you have been trying to think of the right word. You've been refreshingly candid and refreshingly honest about some of the challenges that existed with Joe Young. And I say that sincerely, that you've done so in a way that didn't come across like you were, for the lack of a better term, pissing on his grave. And people want to know these things. I kind of want to go to a little bit more of a positive direction, and I don't mean to put you on the spot, but what is something that Joe Young brought, not to just ANTiSEEN, but to you personally, that you miss?
Oh man, that's an easy question. I think it's hard for anyone to evaluate themselves. Okay. Someone would have to evaluate me, but I can tell you with Joe, there were different stages of Joe. And the Joe that I met, that I started this band with, man, we knew early on, man, we were in this for the long haul, you know. We were very different in a lot of ways, but very similar in just as many ways. And I think we kept each other grounded, especially in the early days. I think because, when we started, Joe was the voice of this band. Mm-hmm. I know people might find that hard to believe at this point, but Joe was the one that talked to everybody. I kind of just, I was just kind of staying in the back a little bit and just being the crazy front man. But Joe was the diplomatic one and the more personable one. And at some point, and I don't know how it happened, but man, I don't even know when it happened. But there was a point when I started kind of taking over and being the spokesman. And I don't remember if there was a time when he was slacking and I had to pick it up, or if I just got more confident, or if we were kind of... I don't ever really recall us fighting over a direction. I know there were some things, but of course in any partnership, someone comes up with an idea and the other guy goes, no way. We had plenty of that, plenty of it. And I know I have said things that maybe people didn't want to hear or didn't want to believe, but I'm telling you, I have not told everything. And I don't want to tell everything because I don't want to paint the guy in a negative light, because all his contributions to this band were not in a negative way. And to me as an individual, man, we had a great songwriting team, and especially in the beginning. And what a lot of people don't realize that it was actually a three-man thing. It was me, Jeff Young, and Joe Young that wrote a bunch of those songs. And I think there's a ton of stuff, a ton of things that I wish Joe was here now for me to discuss with him. Things that he may have even said to me back then that I didn't understand or didn't want to understand that I do now. Joe was way beyond his years. You know that from the little bit that you knew him. And a little bit, you knew him pretty damn good, man. It's like, I didn't mean to say it that way. But I always, it's really hard to keep the train going straight down the track. Mm-hmm. And I think for many years, Joe was the one that was able to do that. Mm-hmm. And I learned that from being around him.
Yeah. And actually, I guess it's next month is 10-year anniversary.
10 years.
10 years. And on also a little bit of a somber note, last summer we hit... I'm kind of going getting away from the Joe thing. Last summer, we hit the 10-year anniversary of Cosmo, Howie Saunders. And I really hate the fact that there's new people coming in that never got to see him do his thing on stage. And but I've never asked you this question. Here we go.
What's going on with this shit, man?
Yeah, we don't have these problems in Concord.
All right.
We back?
Yeah, we're back.
Okay. But we're talking about Cosmo. And Cosmo tragically was taken from us 10 years ago last year. We're coming up on 11 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I've never asked you this, but I've thought it. Was there ever a time that ANTiSEEN more officially wanted to bring him on board for, not necessarily as a member of the band, but maybe a member of the touring, the touring lineup, or maybe a recorded project that where you and he shared, had songwriting.
Man,
you shared songwriting.
All that.
What was taken from us?
All that was discussed, and not just from us approaching him, but also him approaching us. But it was a type of thing, where especially when you're younger guys, you think you seriously think you have all the time in the world.
Mm-hmm. And we're learning now.
And we're learning now that we do not. And the last time that it hit me in the face like a big old pie was with Scott Savage.
Mm-hmm.
We had projects lined up, but we weren't aggressive enough with making them happen.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't. And same with Cosmo. Cosmo had a lot of other things happening around that time too that interfered.
He was not a stable person,
He
to say the
was
least.
not stable.
But I think about a recorded song that he was included on, or a string of shows where he emceed would be legendary.
Oh man, we talked about taking him with us when we went to Europe.
Yeah. I never understood, and this is kind of getting off subject a little bit. I never understood, because he was great in Rancid Vat. Every Rancid Vat show was legendary, and still is. But he provided a flavor to that band that you could never have with anybody else. And I always wonder why he never continued. I feel like he would have just made gold.
Mm-hmm.
Like he put together a few guys and just kept moving.
Well, he did some stuff, but he didn't want to use the Cosmo gimmick for everything, and which was I think was a mistake.
Yeah, if I was a check writer, I'd be like, no, you put the goddamn turban on. Hey, I'm gonna throw you ever watch Jeopardy? You see the word potpourri? It's just like some random stuff. I'm gonna throw one at you.
Okay.
And hopefully you get what I'm understanding, what I'm saying.
Okay.
Up until his death in 2019, and probably for 15 or 20 years before he passed, any show, especially in America, that Rocky Erickson played, I believe there's an ANTiSEEN contingent in every crowd that he played.
I believe that.
And that's not to say that you brought Rocky Erickson back from obscurity, but ANTiSEEN was honoring him in a time when nobody else was.
Man, I agree with that 100%. And I'm going to tell you, there's two things that did that. And I don't know, people may hear me say this and go, oh man, you damn Clayton. They might go, damn Clayton, you full of yourself, ain't you there, son? But I'm going to tell you, two things helped pull Rocky Erickson out of obscurity. One was having a track on the soundtrack of Return of the Living Dead.
Mm-hmm.
The second was us turning on underground punk rock people onto his songs.
I believe so. I have thought that for a very long time. That in every crowd that he plays, there is an ANTiSEEN contingent. It might be small, it might be 2 people, but there's somebody in that crowd that knows who ANTiSEEN is.
Yeah.
Good answer. I'm glad we see it.
Yeah, I believe that, and I'm not doing that to try to toot our own horn. I'm just saying that I have had so many people that that might even not be the lifers for us that told me, man, I never heard of the guy until I heard you guys sing about, singing his songs or talking about him or, championing him. And I am proud of that fact that we brought a bunch of people to that party.
Mm-hmm. I think ANTiSEEN's the choice to honor obscure type bands. I'm trying to think of the one. Screaming Lord Sexual was another one.
Mm-hmm.
You've done several songs, and I think a lot of people know about him through you guys. Moving on from that, we don't have to get too much into this, but ANTiSEEN has had a not always good relationship with Charlotte.
Mm.
And there's been times where you've played high profile shows, anniversary shows outside of Charlotte. Even this last year, you went to Ground Zero, and there's a lot of reasons for that. It's not always done out of spite. It's not always done because
not always.
but it's not because things are frosty. A lot of it has to do with the technical part of having a place that'll work with you. And right now in Charlotte, for a show that size, it doesn't exist. But I feel like right now, for quite a while, you've had a pretty good relationship with Charlotte.
Mm-hmm.
You're not like you're not on anybody's real shit list.
Not that I know of.
That you know of. But you have. That has been a problem in the past.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm talking about the infrastructure as well as some of the fan base. Because like when I came along, it was a lot of metalheads. It was a lot of people that when I started going to ANTiSEEN shows, it was a couple years later. Some of the old school punk rockers started coming back, and that I didn't see for the first 5 years that I was seeing ANTiSEEN. And it's all kind of leveled out now, but you feel like right now, Charlotte's, I'm not trying to think of the right way to say this. What is your relationship with Charlotte now?
Well, I think a certain part of the Charlotte Underground, respects us. And I think there's probably an equal amount that has zero respect for us at all. And I'm fine with that. I don't demand anybody's respect or reverence or anything like that. But I think a lot of people, especially now, believe a lot of rumor and bullshit that were never true and not and just taken completely out of context, and they choose to go with that, and that's fine, whatever they want to do. But I don't know. It just seems like when we play Charlotte, most of our crowd is not a Charlotte crowd.
Yeah.
They're from all the surrounding areas. But I've said this before, man. Well, I don't think we've ever been, with the exception of Philadelphia and Austin, Texas, and maybe San Antonio, Texas. I don't think we've ever been a big city draw. Mm-hmm. I think our draw comes from the outlying areas, the working class area, the blue collar area, and when we play the smaller towns, I just think we do so much better.
I kind of want to go back a little bit and just say something that I meant to say before getting onto this subject. I think once a band hits gets an international footprint, they cease to be a local band.
Right.
So my question about Charlotte, like I don't consider Charlotte a local band, and I've never considered ANTiSEEN to be a local band in Charlotte. And for the whole time that, I mean, you probably were at one point, but when you started playing, when you started touring a lot and having records in other countries and going to, you cease to be a local band when you have that kind of footprint. And I just wanted to put that out there. So, not that being a local band is an insult, but it is.
No, that's not a bad thing.
It is an insult if you aren't a local band. If you and I can't believe I got one question left.
Okay, good.
40 years is a long time. And on this show, you talk about feathers in your cap. And a lot of that comes in the way of collaboration. Michael Bruce, most recently with Wino. Had a lot of them. Your Christmas record was a who's who.
That was an Indian headdress.
Yeah, Indian headdress. So you have and then also certain kinds of records you've put out. The quality of records, maybe some packaging that you never thought you'd be able to do. 40 years in, and you have all these feathers in your cap. What's left? In the sense that are there any brass rings left to reach for? You know, with regard to releases, with things you want to accomplish, that you're actively trying to accomplish, places that you're trying to get to.
Well, that is kind of a tough question right there, because we kind of made the executive decision that we are done with the 7-inch format. And I know that's the format that I think people think of us in the most, you know, but it's just in today's economy, it doesn't make sense. And so that's one thing taken away, but we've added back CD, because CD seems to have never gone away in popularity. But I don't know, man. That reissue of Here to Ruin Your Groove was pretty much, top of the chart project there. You know, we're really proud of that. And then TKO did such a wonderful job on Great Disasters too. You know, just a regular studio, our newest studio album. And I've said this before. For me, personally, it's like being in two versions of ANTiSEEN. I'm in the one the train is being steered by the Ultra lineup, and we're pushing forward. You know, we're not trying to rest on our laurels, and just we're trying to just keep going. But then I also am the guy that deals with all the reissues of the old titles, and then that puts me in that mindset, you know. So as far as what are the new feathers in the cap, man, all I can think at this point, I think one goal that has never been reached that we'd love to reach, we'd love to play Australia. We'd love to play Spain. And of course, there's a ton of people we'd love to have on records with us, you know. And there was see, that's the thing now. The thing with, there was a time, and I know some people listening to this, this may blow your minds, but man, there was a time when you had to send your original master tape. If someone was going to be on it, you had to send your original, the one you've been working on, and all the tracks and everything, you had to send it through the U.S. mail or UPS to the person that was going to do something on it, and they had to take it to a studio and get it back to you. Now, you talk about nervous.
Yeah. The fact that Conqueror Worm thing ever came out.
It's amazing.
It's amazing.
It's amazing. But it did, and so now being able, like, with so many of our heroes that I have their number in my phone. I have, I talk to them on email or on, not, I don't talk to, well, yeah, I guess email, but I talk to them on social media and stuff like that. To make the arrangements and to make it happen and doing everything through wave files. That's where Barry comes in. Again, doing all that stuff, man, the possibilities from here on out are just endless, and I don't think nothing is completely off the table or completely out of the question. Mm-hmm. And to be honest with you, at this moment, I really can't think of what those priorities are, but I don't know, man. I guess if I could think of anything, I would love to have a release where we have Cherie Curry with us. But I don't want to do Cherry Bomb.
I personally would. I would be more of a fan of her having written it. I mean, saying something unoriginal.
Yeah. That would be great. Is there a pathway for some of these things? Is there a pathway to go into Spain or to Australia? Nothing at the moment.
But sometimes that stuff kind of comes out of nowhere.
Yeah, it does. It does sometimes. And maybe the right person will hear this. Yeah. Maybe the right person will know that we're even considering it. And they'll get in touch with me. We'd love to go back to Japan.
Japan came about pretty quick.
Japan came up, got planned, happened, and then it was over. And it was the time of our lives, man.
But for a first time going to Japan, hopefully first time, compared to the European tour that almost wasn't a couple years before, that Japanese run, from what I perceived, was pretty seamless, pretty flawless.
Man, someone told me that when you deal with the Japanese on the business level, that they can be very vague. And I did find that to be true, because I wanted to know how we're going to get there. What time do we got to be there? Where is this going to be? Man, they already had that taken care of. Don't worry, just get here. And I wasn't used to that attitude. But I enjoyed it. Yeah. I really enjoyed it.
I was real happy for you guys when that happened, because that is a thing that you wanted to happen for a very long time.
Yeah.
But it almost seemed like it was never going to happen. But then when it did, it happened fast. In my memory, anyway.
I remember telling my wife, we got together, and I said, I have. You always hear people talk about a 5-year plan or whatever. I never really had no 5-year plans, right? My whole way, let's just get through this month. Let's just get through this year. It's like I don't have no big Mount Everest that I'm wanting to meet at the end of the 5 years. But I did say, you know what? In 5 years, I want to have already been to Japan, whether it's with the band, or if I have to go by my damn self. I want that to be. And in year 5 it happened. It did happen. And I wasn't like pushing for it extra hard or anything, but it happened.
And you got a lot of economy out of that. I mean, you got a live record out of it.
Live record, and that's that. Talk about feathers and cap. To have an ANTiSEEN live in Japan. Why do you think we didn't think of a more original title? Because we wanted a live in Japan.
The only thing that's odd about that is that you didn't have Ultraman and Godzilla all over it. I felt like you could have really strong armed Mark Rainey with a die cut kaiju.
Oh well, if there's a second trip, believe me, Live in Japan 2 will probably have that kind of shit.
Well, Jeff, that's it. That's all the questions I've...
Well, man, those are some good questions. I really appreciate you interviewing me.
I was pretty proud of it. I didn't want to come at you. I didn't even mention the punk rocker from New Hampshire.
Yeah, you sure did.
I didn't even mention him. I didn't ask you about any of your influences. Everybody already knows that whole story. But
yeah. By the way, that advertisement I made for this interview and had Jeff asking those riveting questions. Those are the 3 questions I get asked every single interview I ever do.
And listen, I don't mean to put down those people who ask you those questions. A lot of times when you get asked those, it's podcasts, and they have a periphery knowledge of ANTiSEEN, and maybe they're trying to hit people who have even less than they do. So I understand those questions.
Oh, and now don't get me wrong. I don't think I'm too good to answer those questions, and I don't think it's a hassle to answer those questions. Actually, you know what? I am honored that anyone cares enough to ask me those questions. I would feel it was a little bit of a hassle to be asked those questions in this form.
Well, that's why I felt like the questions that I was going to ask you, and that's not to say that I felt like I could do a better interview than anybody else, but this crowd, the people watching Break On Through, they know the preliminary stuff. I felt like I was right there for the job.
Yeah, well, I agree, and thank you very much. Now, can I get you to do one more job for me?
What's that?
Walk around there and hit that finish button.
Not a problem.
Well, thank you very much, Jeff. Thank you all for sitting with us for a little extra time, and I hope you have a great week, an even better weekend. Thank you so much. See you soon.